Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Prime Comments. And I got 4 comments to go through today, this week, whatever you guys want to call it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and let's get into it. Our first comment comes from the Resident Evil 7 is coming to Switch with a catch video that we did 1 week ago. And this comment is by Omega Fire, and it reads like this. Doom, Wolfenstein, NBA 2K, Crash. No effing excuse, Capcom. Stop being stupid and get the game on the console. If want to stream a game, then why bother with owning a console or PC? Just get a controller on your smart TV and you're set. And I feel like this is a general sentiment a lot of people had towards the idea of Resident Evil 7 streaming on Switch. And yes, I have tried, by the way, for those who are curious, I did try streaming Resident Evil 7 on my Switch to varying levels of success. For the most part, I'd say it's an utter failure because I can't really play for longer than 6 minutes before getting disconnected. But at the same point, that's not really a good sample size because I'm talking about connecting to servers that are completely overseas, and of course the connection is not going to be that great unless I live in Japan. But what I will say about all of this is that just because you bring up examples like Doom, Wolfenstein, NBA 2K, and Crash, which Crash isn't a good example anyways, but in terms of Doom, Wolfenstein, NBA 2K, those are not running on the same engines, and a lot of games coming to Switch from third-party companies, AAA quality games, is going to come down to engine support. You see, the ID6 tech engine that Doom and Wolfenstein 2 use is highly compatible and able to run well on Switch. Certain versions, not the most recent version technically, but certain versions of Unreal Engine 4 will run very well on Switch, but Dragon Quest X/11 have been kind of delayed to come out on Switch because the most recent versions of Unreal Engine 4 are not currently running on the platform. So yeah, there's little ins and outs here where it's not just as simple as say snap your fingers and those games can come over. They have to decide that the engine it's running on can run well enough on Switch to bring the games over. And we know that Resident Evil 7, at least based on rumored reports, has been coming to the platform for a year, that they've been experimenting, and it might just turn out that the engine that Resident Evil 7 is using isn't very compatible with the Switch's hardware, and there's too much work to put in, too much money to invest to make it work. So when you compare things like Resident Evil 7 to Doom and Wolfenstein 2, NBA 2K, what you have to realize is that they're all running on different engines. I mean, Doom and Wolfenstein 2 are on the same engine, but that's the thing. Just because these games run on Switch doesn't mean other games can also run on Switch. Especially for games that weren't ever built or intended to be on Switch in the first place. So, yeah, besides all that, when you talk about streaming games, and if you want to stream games, and you might as well just get a controller for your smart TV, go right ahead. It probably won't be that great of an experience because even streaming, it's not just about the internet. You have to process the information coming in, and generally in smart TVs, not all of them, but a lot of the ones that consumers own on a bigger scale because, well, let's be honest, a lot of people aren't going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on their TV, aren't using like the best possible, mobile CPU architecture in there, and it creates some streaming delays. You don't notice it as much in things like Netflix, but when you're talking about game streaming and you have to relay information not just to your TV, but from your TV back onto servers, it's not exactly the best way to do it. So yeah, it's not that simple, although it can be that simple. That being said, I'm not against the idea of streaming games to Switch. I know it kind of ruins part of the novelty of the platform of being able to take your games anywhere, but I don't think it ruins things inherently, and we need to be more considerate of the developers at times as well. I think a lot of times we as consumers just worry about our end of things and being selfish, and I get that. Obviously, I completely understand why we are selfish as a people at times, but we have to be considerate of Capcom's side as well. And I understand there's a lot of people out there that don't like Capcom, and I'm not here to have that debate. But I think that in a case like this, we just need to play the wait-and-see game. Maybe Resident Evil 7 will get, a full version on the console. And I feel like as a rental service, it might be good to have streamed versions and retail versions, but hard to compromise one for the other, right? We should get both. So I'm with a lot of people that said there definitely needs to be a ported version. I just feel like trying to say there should be a ported version of the game because other completely unrelated games from completely different companies using completely different engines run on the platform is a weak excuse at best. There's a lot better arguments you can make, such as the fact that they've had over a year to get a version running, and they're not even willing to admit they're trying. So I don't know. I'm okay that there's a streaming version. I wish it wasn't the only way, and I hope the streaming version does come to the West for those interested. But beyond that, I feel like it's just beating a dead horse at this point. A lot of people are not happy about it. A lot of people don't like the fact that there might be a future. Probably not in our lifetimes, because I don't put it this way. I don't see a future in our lifetimes where there's not going to be native games on the platform. You might argue in our lifetimes there might be a future where digital, or I should say physical games don't exist, but the idea of still purchasing a game and installing it on your system, I don't think that's going to go away in our lifetimes. Maybe our children's lifetime or our children's lifetime, especially if internet ever reaches the full penetration point where everyone's basically on fiber worldwide and practically for free or for peanuts. But that's a future we don't currently live in, and it's a future we don't know if it'll ever exist. So we'll just have to wait and see. Moving on to our next comment. It comes from the Hack Switch units are being restricted by Nintendo video, and it's a rather lengthy one, and it comes from Joel Dominguez. And he says, have people in your comments actually listen to your video? You literally said that they break the end user agreement. They did not pirate anything. In fact, the two that got banned are against piracy, and they just want to have some fun making their consoles make stuff that aren't intended to, like booting up Linux. Use Homebrew. For those not aware, these are essentially software made at home applications that tend to be free games made by themselves or emulators or just apps like save managers and such. There is no way to cheat either way right now, besides maybe editing save files, but online games are not affected by this, so what's the point? I've read people many times that you should always use your consoles as they are intended to and never hack, neither pirate. But people don't do it because they are trying to be mean. Each one has its own reasons. Some can't just afford $40 or 40 euros for a game. Some just because they want to try a game and then buy it. And others just enjoy doing more stuff, like save managing. Like he said in the video, Etika does this per example. Or enjoy the portability of the Switch with games they don't own anymore, or they own but don't want to carry them all together. You know you can technically play with Switch up to GameCube with this. And you may ask why. Well, we don't have Virtual Console yet, so there's another reason there. Also pointing out that the two guys who were banned have one more Switch at least, so that's not a big deal either. And there's a few things to point out here. For starters, cheating is happening. We did do a report about how cheating is happening in Splatoon 2. I have also heard from many people that cheating has been occurring in ARMS for a little while now, really since the Switch started getting hacked late last year. And beyond that, some people have seen not as many, but a few, a handful of cheaters popping up in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And I did note in that video that it's possible this might be happening in other games. We're just not hearing about it yet, and now we're starting to hear about it as Splatoon 2 is obviously the most popular multiplayer game on Switch, and now that that's been affected on a decent enough scale that people are finally noticing that it is also happening in these other games. And when I read your comment, beyond the fact that editing save files, by the way, can actually affect online games like Splatoon 2. As an example, your save file for Splatoon 2, if you go in there and edit a weapon you currently possess, you could edit that weapon to have different stats and different features, and then when you load up that save file in Splatoon 2, you're actually using that weapon in an online match, and as such, boom, 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 you are gaining an advantage over people in cheating. That's kind of one of the most unfair cheats there are. Then there's the invincibility cheats that are happening in Splatoon 2 as well. Now, Nintendo can actually fix the Splatoon 2 issue. There's a very simple way to do it, and that is that when people connect online to play right before the match starts, or when they're even in the lobby, although it probably can't do it till the match starts because you can change weapons, you can do what's called an online check. And what happens is they check the items and the gear you are loading into the game and doing a stat check. And if the stats do not line up with what the available stats are supposed to be, they can just kick that person from the group and do an automatic ban. There's a lot they'd have to program in to do that, and they probably should have already had this in the game from day one. But now that it's becoming a problem in Splatoon 2, I hope it is something Nintendo is working on. It is a way to protect online users from having to play against unfair means, and there are other multiplayer games that do this. They don't catch everyone because there's other cheats in the game beyond stat modifications, but it will take care of some of the worst, and then you just have to find a way to sweep up the rest through the report system and all of that. So hopefully Nintendo takes care of that. But in general, in response to your whole comment, you know, when you say people in the comments actually listen to your video, he said that because there's a lot of people in the comments that were acting like, good, these people are pirating and blah, 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 which that wasn't the case at the time. These aren't pirators. In fact, even though there are people who hack their systems to pirate games, it is not possible yet to emulate Switch games completely, to actually make them in a playable state. There's no Switch game that's able to be emulated in a playable state right now, so you can't pirate that way. And as for pirating the software back onto the system, as in getting like a ROM version of, you know, a digital copy of it, loading it on your SD card, sticking it in your Switch, and then playing it natively on the platform, which is another way to pirate. Famously in the past, they did this with flash carts on 3DS and DS. That's not possible right now either. Now, that doesn't mean it won't be possible in the future. There's obviously some hackers working towards that means, but most of them, in fact, a majority of the hacking community that I have spoken to, that I have read posts from, like on GBA Temp, etc., are not actually interested in hacking the platform to pirate games. At least pirate Switch games. You might see them be hacking to emulate games, and that's a whole nother conversation. We could talk about emulating old games, especially games that aren't available in any currently purchasable form, you know, that actually gives money back to Nintendo and other companies. You know, obviously we're talking about, you know, buying games from secondhand retailers versus spending money that actually goes to the people who made the games. But I feel like that's a different conversation than talking about people pirating Switch games, which are obviously widely available to be purchased on the eShop or physically, or obviously cheating in games. And when you talk about, you know, people not actually listening to my video, I feel like there's a group, there's three groups of people. You know, maybe four groups of people when you watch videos on YouTube. You have the people that read the headline, don't watch the video, go to the comment section and comment. Then you have people that, you know, that read the headline, click on the video, watch a couple minutes, get the gist of what the video is about. Because especially in my news videos, I cover the news usually in the first 2 to 3 minutes. The rest of it is just adding my thoughts and all that stuff generally, or breaking down things. And they do that, and then they go down and comment. Then you have the people who have selective hearing. So they will listen to the entire video, but the only parts that they remember, the only parts that stick out, were the areas where they disagreed with something I said. So they might ignore all the context for those statements, but remember the things they said that irritated them without you know, remembering everything I said that led up to that comment. Because maybe they were playing the videos in the background while they were doing something else, while they were playing a game. Maybe they themselves were editing videos. Maybe they were doing something. Maybe they're at work, right, or on their way to work, and they just played it in their car, you know, like a podcast. And so they didn't listen to all of it. They just paid attention to bits and pieces here and there. So there's that. Then there's the people that listen to the entirety of the video and gain all the context and listen closely and get what I'm saying. And they might still disagree with me. They might still make their points. But yeah, I feel like that's really the way it breaks down with any piece of content. You know, in terms of editorial form, I think the selective hearing part is gone because you need to actually read the article. There are people that skim, but I don't think you can really skim selectively. Some people do, because they'll be like, I want to look for this one word in there. I want to look for hacker, and I'm going to skim until I see hacker, read the one sentence, and make broad assumptions. But I don't think that's as big a deal in print media as it is in video, where people selectively hear things. But yeah, I'm not that worried about that. I think that, you know, I think I've made this pretty clear over time here. I'm not against people hacking their Switches. I am not going to do it myself because the moment you modify your Switch, now I'm not talking about hardware-wise. Like if you take, like as an example, my Switch, I've taken the back plate off because it was cracked, and I replaced it with a white back plate. That is technically a modification of your Switch, but that's not actually a legal mod. Nintendo argued in the past that was an illegal modification, and thus they couldn't cover it under warranty. Now, granted, my Switch isn't out of warranty anyway, so any repair done to it, I'd have to pay for regardless, whether I do it myself or I send it to Nintendo or I go to a repair shop. But what I will say is that technically, those aren't the modifications we're talking about. I'm fine if people want to, change the color of the Joy-Cons, put a deep brand skin down, buy a custom thing. You want to take your dock apart and put it in a smaller dock or whatever, that's fine. We're talking about, the hacking of it, the going into the hardware level and accessing it before the OS loads up so you can load in custom code. I'm not against people doing that. I won't do it personally because when you do that, you do break the end user license agreement. That means that Nintendo can do things like ban your accounts, potentially brick your system. Some people said, oh, Nintendo can't do that legally. Actually, if you read the end user license agreement, they can do that and have done that in the past. And anyone who says I'm lying about that, you need to do a Google search on Nintendo bricking 3DSs, bricking DSs, bricking Wiis, bricking Wii U's for people hacking them. It is within their rights to do it. It is not something they just blanket do. They start with banning, but it is something that they do once in a while when they feel there isn't any other appropriate response other than to make your hardware unusable. And I want to make this clear as well, the hacking community isn't upset that this happens. They aren't upset that Nintendo might brick your system. They're not upset they might have their accounts banned. They're not upset about any of this because this is something you accept as someone hacking your Switch. When you hack your Switch, you know you are breaking the end user license agreement, and you know Nintendo can ban your account or delete your Switch or brick it if they really want to. Nintendo can do this. It's an inherently known and accepted risk for doing it. So that being the case, nobody really feels bad that this is happening. This is just the way it goes. I do feel slightly bad if someone like Etika got his account banned or his Switch banned because the only reason he hacked the system was to back up his 500 plus hour Xenoblade Chronicles 2 save file. Can you blame someone for being worried about that? Especially Etika, who's a little rougher with his Switch. It's been dropped many times. He keeps it in his pocket, so it's a little banged up. I obviously, if I'm going to use my Switch in that way, would be worried about it a bit more. But again, once Cloud Saves comes out, that's not going to be much of an issue, at least for now, in the immediate. Obviously, we're talking 10, 15 years now. Is Nintendo going to keep those save files around on their cloud? Who knows? We can't project into the future, but at least there's a way to take care of it now. I think that that kind of stuff is mostly okay. I don't have an issue with the hacking community, even if I personally won't do it, because I don't want to risk my account getting banned or my Switch getting, bricked or whatever. But I obviously am very against piracy. I'm extremely, extremely, extremely against any sort of, shall we say, cheating. I don't care if you do it in a single-player game on your own, it affects no one, but if you go into online matches and you are knowingly cheating, you are scum. You are the absolute worst scum of the video game community, and Nintendo should bring down the hammer as hard as they possibly can on you because you are ruining games for everybody else. And just because you spent $60 on Splatoon 2 and maybe even $20 on the online service doesn't suddenly mean that you have the right to ruin other people's experiences to make your own experience better. I'm sorry, if you're not having a good enough experience with the game, then either the game isn't for you or you suck at Splatoon 2 and you should get the hell out of the community. You are the worst of the worst gamers, and I don't even want to call you gamers. You're just scum. Just scum. So that's my stance on that. Hope I made that clear. I don't mind the hacking community overall, but I deplore cheaters. I deplore people who are going to pirate Switch games, and those people can just get the hell out of my community. I don't want them anywhere near the Switch. The rest of the hacking community that's just having fun with it, playing around with the hardware, loading Linux up, maybe even putting SNES Classics on there so you can just not have to plug in your SNES Classic. You can just have it all on Switch and then switch back to whatever. You guys do all that, and you're taking risks, and you accept those risks, and we'll just move on on. I'm hoping that Nintendo finds a way to stop these cheaters, because I am so sick and tired of every online multiplayer game in the world, no matter the platform, has cheaters on it. And most of them have found a good way to limit them. Right now, they're starting to get a little rampant in Splatoon 2. Hopefully, Nintendo will crack down. And if people say, wait till September, when they have to log in, they already log into your Nintendo account system. You're already logging into Nintendo servers. Flipping a switch isn't going to do anything but enable a paywall. But I'm hoping that at least when the online service launches, Nintendo takes this more seriously and makes the reporting features easier, better, and actually work. Right now, I am not aware of any Splatoon 2 or any cheater in ARMS or any cheater in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that has actually had their account banned. The only people we're aware of that have been banned weren't people that were cheating or pirating anyways. So at this point, I want to start hearing stories about how Nintendo is cracking down on the scum, more so than just cracking down on hacking in general. Because even though you can't really do a lot of this stuff without hacking, there are ways to cheat already in these games that don't involve hacking at all. So we need to crack down on this stuff. Nintendo, bring the hammer. Let's move on. Our next comment comes from the Me Studio has launched, and I'm wondering what avatars mean in 2018 video. And the comment was by Mutson. He says, I think the main reason why they did this was because it was so easy. It probably took a couple of people about an hour or two to make it. All the assets are already there. They just need to make it work on a website. As for the importance of it, I don't really think there is much. The Switch has its Mii Maker buried in the options menu. There's no longer a big deal, and it was more of a case of, you know what, we could do this very quickly. It may provide some sort of publicity. Or perhaps they're working on some new Miitomo / Tomodachi lifestyle title that perhaps is on smartphones and wanted to give people without a Switch the opportunity to create Miis. And I will say, for starters, I do apologize. I did get a fact wrong in there, and it's a weird fact because I've used it myself. I briefly made a throwaway comment about how you can't make Miis on Switch. You can indeed make Miis on Switch. It is buried in the options menu, as he mentioned, but it is there. It's just not thrown in your face as, hey, when you boot up your system the first time, create a Mii like it is on Wii U and 3DS and Wii back in the day. So it is there, and I have done it. My avatar I talked about being a Mii character, it wasn't one I ported in. It was one I actually made on the system. So I've actually used the Mii Maker on Switch. It was just the first day I got the Switch and then I forgot about it, kind of thing. So I apologize for forgetting that you can do it on Switch. But yeah, I don't think the Mii Maker thing, I'm still not sold on why Nintendo released Mii Maker Studio, nor am I sold on why they even have the Mii Maker on Switch, because it very much feels to me like they are gravitating away from Miis, and I don't know what that means. I feel like they're including it because it is a known quantity. It is their form of creating your own custom avatars, and other platforms still have it, so Nintendo's just kind of holding on. I feel like it's a holdover from the past, but then when they released Mii Studio, it's like, well, Mii Studio should have been here, 5 years ago. It would have made sense. Today it's like, but why? Unless they have a Tomodachi Life, unless they have a Miitomo 2 coming out. And by the way, they just shut down Miitomo, so I don't know why they would have a Miitomo 2 coming. I think they're done with Miitomo. I just don't know. I still don't understand what they're doing. Some people have mentioned Go Vacation. It's not because of Go Vacation. If you look at Go Vacation, the avatars in Go Vacation are so far beyond what Mii is that you can't even call them Mii. Some people say, oh, it's barely past what Mii does. No, it's not. Look at those avatars again. They look nothing like Mii's. It's not even in the same. They look more like what you can do on Xbox than they do on Switch. So yeah, I'm not thinking Go Vacation's why either. And besides, Go Vacation's a ported game from Wii. You're not keeping Miitomo around because of a port from Wii. Some people obviously mention, oh, it's because of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe lobby, and I get that because the Mario Kart 8 is a Wii U game that you, in the online lobby, you use Mii's for your stuff in there. But I don't even think that's why. Maybe that's why it exists at all. Maybe that's why they have a Mii Maker. But I don't think that's why Mii Studio launched. I don't know what they're thinking. I'm curious for more ideas from you guys on why this is the case. I think Mutson made some good points that, maybe there's a Tomodachi Life in the works. Maybe it's because it was just super easy to do and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has it. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about that in the comments below. And our last comment from this week comes from the cheaters have arrived in Splatoon 2's online, and I'm worried. Again, something I've already brought up. And this comment comes from CM14, who says, I played Splatoon 2 today, didn't run into hackers. I seriously hope that Nintendo will do something about this, considering that we're going to have to pay $20 a year for their online services. This needs to be fixed quickly. The last thing I want to worry about is being unable to play ranked battles due to hackers. And all I can really say to that is, you're right, Nintendo does need to do something about it. There is a report function. I told people about it in the video. I'll repeat it again. Go log into the Nintendo Switch Online app. You can report people through the app. I feel like there needs to be better ways of reporting, but more than that, so far we're not aware of anyone who's been reported that has actually been banned, whether it's been in ARMS, whether it's been in Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Those are kind of the three big ones on the platform right now. We have not heard of anyone getting banned. I'm hoping that it happens. I think for the sake of everyone, it just creates a better online experience. I would like to see Nintendo make a public statement about it, that they are taking these reports seriously and that they are starting to roll out bans and they're working on new preventative measures for cheating. But until we hear about it, or until we start seeing like even if Nintendo doesn't address it publicly, they just act on it, we're all going to be a little worried. And because especially if you were a Wii U owner, you know Nintendo basically did absolutely nothing about cheaters on Wii U. They did literally nothing. But now we're going to be paying for an online service to access these online multiplayer games, and Nintendo, you know, we're paying for something. And I know some of you guys might say we're paying for NES games, but you know what? If we're paying for anything, it better be so Nintendo cracks down on cheating and takes it seriously and puts in all the preventative measures they can and reacts swiftly to reports. Because while you can never 100% eliminate cheating, if you can eliminate a majority of it, that makes the experience that much better for everyone across the board. Anyways, folks, I'm Nathaniel Roboljantz from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button. I want to mention, if you go down to a link in the description, you can get this new merch here, this Nintendo Prime White Fly t-shirt. We have blue, we have it in red, we have it in black, etc., etc. We also technically have some Nintendo Prime hats that I'm not wearing right now to show up, but we do have some Nintendo Prime hats you can get in the description, and I'm like thrilled to announce that those zip hoodies you see me wearing every now and then are now available publicly. You can buy those down in the description as well. We have worked out all of the legal stuff with that. Anyways, folks, I will catch you guys next week for another Prime Comments. Peace out.